Let your soul and spirit fly into mystic. Let your soul and spirit fly into mystic. Into mystic. Into mystic. Into mystic.
Good evening and welcome back to Mystic Matters. We are the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce. Good evening, Tricia Walsh, your second show at Mystic Matters.
I know, time just flies right by.
I know.
Good evening, Suzette.
We have a whole year to go.
Oh, a whole year ahead of us, yes.
Ahead of us to go.
Exactly.
And you know what, this evening? What? We have Dr. Jason Mancini. He is a senior researcher. That is a lot to say. Jason.
It's a lot less than the title of the place I work.
Which is Mashantucket Pequot Museum and Research Center. Yes. So welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank
you
for having me.
Nice to have you
here. So if you could, would you mind just telling us a little bit about what upcoming events and exhibits are going on right now at the museum?
Sure. Well, let me just say first of all that the museum is entering its 15th year. And we're sort of looking forward to a year full of events.
Wow.
The museum itself is the largest Native American museum in the world. So we're hoping to capitalize on some of this exposure this year and moving forward. But as I said, we are celebrating 15 years. We have all sorts of programming, summer programming coming up, projects including the Pequot War Battlefield Project that we're hoping to draw a lot of attention to.
What exactly is that? I mean, can you just tell us a little bit about
Sure.
the Pequot War battlefield sites?
Sure. Well, it's a project that's based around the event that's commonly known as the Pequot Massacre that took place right here in Mystic in May of 1637. And what we've been spending the last several years doing is working on a National Park Service grant focused on exploring the history of the war, locating the actual site of the fort and the various activities that took place as a result of this attack at Mystic. So it's this past year we celebrated, or commemorated anyway, the 375th anniversary of that event. The Pequots, Mohegans, and some Narragansetts came together to acknowledge the event.
The event itself.
Yeah.
Right. And this has all been documented and certainly something that is easily researchable.
It's been written about and discussed for the last 400 years, more or less.
Okay.
And Kevin McBride and the team of archaeologists and researchers have been pouring through the archaeological data that they've been working on, as well as historical documents. So it's quite intensive, a lot of legwork, and we're coming up with many, many new kinds of materials that hopefully in the near future we'll be bringing to exhibit form.
Wow, excellent. How long have you been at the museum?
I've worked at the museum for about 19 years. I've worked on the reservation for about 27. Since I was a youngster. I grew up in town, so I've worked with the tribe for a very long time and have been involved in the project since its inception.
27 years?
27 years.
Associated with the not with the museum.
Not with the museum, with the archaeological work that was going on the reservation back in the mid-'80s.
So this is really something that you have a passion for, and I mean, you have to have a passion for it to be that connected and embraced in this whole project.
Yeah, I've been working with the community for a long time, and I started out as a kid working with Kevin McBride as an archaeologist, and then as I developed a role at the museum, I now sort of head up all of the historical research for the tribe.
So what would you say the museum has to offer a family, either visiting or even local, that maybe hasn't checked it out recently?
Well, we have 308,000 square feet of space. About a third of that is exhibits. You can literally spend an entire day going through the exhibits. The exhibits span 18,000 years of natural and cultural history from the end of the last ice age through the population by mammoths and mastodons and giant beavers and things like that. And then when humans arrive, the Pequot's ancestors came on this landscape, and we have evidence about 10 to 11,000 years ago. So our exhibits start around that time and focus on the cultural changes over the next several thousand years until we get to our largest exhibit, which is a half-acre life-size reconstruction of a Pequot village.
That one's my favorite.
Which is everybody's favorite.
It's my favorite too, but I didn't want to, there's a lot of exhibits in there, but
that seems to be, that's the one that really stands out. And
it's
really,
a showstopper.
Yeah, it is.
And we call it an immersion environment, so people can walk into this space and not see exhibit text or films or anything like that, and just feel like you're in that space and feel like you're standing in the 16th century.
Jason, just where are you located? I mean, we're speaking to the audience as if, of course, we've been there, as if people in our audience know where this wonderful museum is. But where are you located, number one? And number two, take us, when we do come to the museum, take us through what are we expecting, and is there an actual guide? Because a lot of times when you go to some of these museums, there's a lot that we don't understand. I mean, is it very easy to take us through the history? I mean, take us through some of that.
Sure.
And tell us where you are located.
Okay,
first.
so we are actually a separate entity from the tribe's Foxwoods Casino. We're located about a quarter of a mile away, still on the reservation on Pequot Trail. It's a very large building, but it is tucked into the woods. The architecture sort of nestles the building into the edge of the cedar swamp. Most of about half of the building is underground, and it's a little it's hard to detect because the entire surface of the museum is a green roof. I can talk about that after. But once you come into the museum, you enter a very large gathering space that's enclosed with glass, and the gathering space is actually modeled after the Pequot Fort. It's meant to represent the Pequot Fort that was attacked in Mystic.
Yes.
Massive, quite massive.
And it's an excellent space for events. We've been hosting a lot of events there. And then you descend down a ramp towards the exhibits. And once you get into the exhibits, you're introduced to the Pequot community today. And then you begin that tour through the 18,000 years. You descend down an escalator that takes you through a glacier and then into the exhibits. Now, whether or not you're with a tour guide or not depends on the kinds of services that you want to have. You can pay for public program staff to guide you through the museum. Many school groups do this. We have a lot of kids come to the museum during the course of the year. We have private events and also tours led by folks like myself, by Kevin McBride, and other staff members that we have throughout the year, depending on the specific focus.
Now, are you open year-round?
We are. We're open Wednesday to Saturday. The exhibits are open from 9 to 5. And we'll do things inside and outside on those days. Sometimes in the very cold weather. And
that's not the time, Tricia, that I want to come.
In the cold weather?
In the cold weather. I would like to come during, the nice hot weather.
Well, because it's air conditioned.
It's air conditioned, right.
But I think during the cold weather it's perfect because it's warm.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about, going indoors and outdoors. And also, I always think fall because of your way above ground observation area.
Yes.
And that's so beautiful.
Yes.
And how far does that?
Yeah, so we have, as you walk into the building in near the gathering space, is a 180-foot observation tower. So you can take an elevator up that high and get it offers a commanding view of the surrounding landscape.
It's unbelievable. But
yes.
The fall.
Yeah. The fall is the beautiful.
With the foliage, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can see into Rhode Island as far as Massachusetts. Doesn't quite eclipse the hill to the south, so we can't see Long Island Sound, but It has a nice view of Lantern Hill, which is the highest point in the surrounding landscape. But a beautiful view of the area around the Cedar Swamp. You can see over towards Mohegan, the Eastern Pequot Reservation, and the surrounding farmlands and woodlands.
Now, Jason, you said you grew up in this area, and I just want to circle back the 27 years. What made you stay for so long, and how did you originally get involved?
Well, now you're getting me to reveal my personal history.
Well, it's all about Mystic Matters
Yes.
because
It is. I actually I did grow up in town and went to school with Pequot kids
Right.
who were friends of mine. But my uncle, who is Kevin McBride, was the
Wow.
reason I
Okay.
got involved
now, Kevin
so young.
has been on our show many times,
Yes.
so yeah, great guy.
So, as a youngster, I tagged along. I used to beg my parents to tag along with him in the field. So when I was 7, 8 years old, I would go on digs with him, and then I would work when I was a little bit older during the summertime, up through college and so on.
Wow.
So it all started there.
Excellent. Now, you do something else besides for just the research at the museum as well, correct?
Yep, I teach anthropology courses at the University of Connecticut and occasionally at Connecticut College, and I'm teaching at both schools right now.
and you were actually
my professor in the past. So,
we have to see how we circle back to
Yes.
the
Yes.
all about
All
us.
things connected. Yes,
So you went on a couple of these digs with Kevin.
many, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
What was your favorite find?
Oh, wow.
Or a couple of your favorite finds? And tell me a little bit about the history. You must have found out something about these.
Well, I have to say, and I may upset you a little bit by saying
Okay.
that my favorite work was on Block Island.
On Block
And
Island, okay.
while my favorite location is Mystic, summers on Block Island
I
were
want to
very
tell
nice.
you that Dr. Jason Mancini is very politically correct, especially with Trisha and I.
Yes, he loves
I'm not
it.
sure I'll be welcome back, but
Oh, absolutely, we want you back. And maybe you and Kevin. That would be a great
that
show.
would be great. Yeah. So summers on Block Island were nice. We worked on a 17th century fort, Indian fort out there, a place called Fort Island,
Okay.
where a variety of not just the fortification, but wampum, which was an important object to Native people in this area, was being produced. Certainly, forts are sort of a big thing around here. We also have a fort that was located on the Pequot Reservation, so I spent a lot of time in many summers excavating what we call Monhantic Fort. It was occupied during King Philip's War by the Pequot community in the 1670s. So that was a lot of fun spending time summers on that. But most of my work has been in southern New England and especially on the Pequot Reservation. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So what should we be keeping an eye out for? What's upcoming and exciting?
Well, we have a variety of exhibits. We have new exhibits, a permanent exhibit at the Pequot Museum called Almost Vanished, which explores the Pequot community's relationship to its neighbors during the 18th and 19th centuries when the last piece of reservation was taken away and sold at public auction, and then the Pequot responses to that dispossession. So the exhibit focuses both on the community that remained at Mashantucket, but also the tribal members that left and where they went, including an Indian neighborhood that began to form in Westerly, Rhode Island, in the late 1800s. So we
In
see
Westerly,
some
Rhode Island.
Westerly, Rhode Island.
Okay, that's the first that I've heard.
Yeah, this is sort of
Yeah,
a new,
this is new.
a new part of our work and research and collaboration with the Pequot community. So not just the Pequot community, but the Narragansetts, the Montauks and Shinnecocks of Long Island, and the Wampanoags and Nipmucks of Massachusetts. All members all lived in this westerly neighborhood where they formed a neighborhood. They had a church. They had a political organization called the American Indian Federation. and was quite a vibrant community in sort of the aftermath of this land loss. They found new ways of living. So our new exhibit focuses on that aspect of Pequot history and regional Native history. We also have a exhibit right now called Dolls, Nitapawis. Dolls is ambassadors of Native culture. It's an in-house exhibit that we produced focused on dolls and the culture of dolls around Native country. And it's a pretty exciting exhibit. A lot of kids really love it. So definitely we want kids to come up and bring their parents and grandparents with them. This summer we'll be having a new exhibit in our temporary gallery called Ramp It Up, which looks at skateboarding in the Native community. Which is something we don't normally think about, but
that's really thinking outside of the box.
It is.
I know a lot of people will be interested in that.
Yeah. So really,
it's new and exciting.
Yeah.
Too.
It is, and we're really trying to tap into the variety of Native experience, not just in southern New England, but across the country. So there's a lot of tribes in the Southwest that focus on this kind of activity. There's a filmmaker that's done some work on skateboarding. And so on. Some of the work that I'm involved with also focuses on Native mariners, the Pequot and Mohegan and Narragansett mariners that went to sea through the ports of New London and Mystic and Stonington and traveled around the world. So those are new exhibits that will be forthcoming, new research that's forthcoming, and I've been collaborating with Mystic Seaport on some of this with their Morgan project, the restoration of the Charles W. Morgan.
Full circle, doesn't it, Jason?
Yeah.
When you connect the dots
in
this area. I have a question for you because my husband visited the museum a couple of months ago for the very first time, and he was just in awe. And certainly we'll be back. Actually, I would like him to go back and spend a couple of days there. We work 24 hours a day together, and we are in business together. But
he could live in one of the teepees.
He could live in one of the teepees just for an overnight. I want him back, but just for an overnight. But Jason, how important is this museum to the community, and how important is it to our future, mainly our future of our kids? I mean, and I'm going to ask that question because if, again, we are connected to Mystic, we have this awe in our history here. But if you don't come from around here, what's it to you?
Okay, well, I think a couple of things. One is so much of colonial history is rooted right here. Much of colonial policies, and in fact, American Indian policy literally started here. From the first reservations in this country, which two of the Pequot reservations are the oldest in the nation, including the Pequot's first reservation at Noank and their current reservation at Mashantucket. It's the oldest continuously occupied reservation in the country. So we can really begin to look at the Indian experience through the Pequot experience specifically. The other thing that I think the Pequot Museum is so important for is our focus on race and diversity and understanding different cultures and the cultural experience, not just for Native people, but broadly in the United States. And that's one thing that we're going to be looking at as we move forward is focusing on the Pequot Museum as a center for race and diversity and ethnicity and those kinds of things. And we'll be looking to develop corporate-based programs offering cultural competency and diversity training and things like that.
And how important, Tricia, for the young people?
Well, that's fascinating. I mean, that's such a, just this small step aside, and it goes with what you're doing, and then to go into this completely different, the training and everything, and I think it's definitely needed, and what better place to do it than such
absolutely.
a great location.
I mean, we're a premier location for discussing this kind of thing and bringing it to as broad an audience as possible.
We talked about the roof. Oh, you tapped into that a little bit, and we wanted to circle back. You said, well, the green roof, but we have to get back to that.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. The green roof is, it covers all of our permanent exhibits, and is about 60,000 square feet of green roof. It's one of the largest in the region, and we actually won an award for it from a national in 2006.
Okay, yeah.
From the organization called Green Roofs for Healthy Cities. So we've been recognized as a premier institution for our green roof. We'll be promoting that to architectural, landscape design, and environmental organizations, people who are interested in this kind of thing. And we're certainly going in the green direction. Our restaurant also.
You're a model for for this area.
We'd like to think so.
Yeah,
I think we can really tap into this sort of environmental ethic. Our restaurant, which is offering a brand new menu that has a lot of native-inspired foods, is also going green.
I didn't know that either.
I didn't know that, Jason. I really didn't know that about your restaurant there.
Yep. So we have just a wonderful new menu. So it's very reasonably priced, and all of our products are green products. They're bamboo, they're cornstarch made, and so on. So we'll be looking to become a certified green restaurant. Yeah.
I didn't even hear.
Well, we'll have to go to lunch.
Well, absolutely, and ask Jason to come along with us.
Exactly.
Now you do events there. Let's just tap into that, because I think that was another part of the
Yeah.
museum. Although the last time I was there was at an event, Tricia, and I thought, wow, what a great place to have an event. The room is just, I could barely concentrate on the speakers because where they put the podium, I mean, just this glass,
stars,
just to look up
Yeah.
at the sky. So you have events there. Is it just is it weddings? I mean, what kind of events are you talking about?
Well, we have a number of different kinds of events, depending on the spaces that we have.
How
weddings.
many people can fit there?
We had an event this
capacity?
past year that hosted about 800 people.
Wow. And you had plenty of parking.
We have lots of parking.
Right.
So we have conferences. Weddings are becoming increasingly popular, whether they're in the gathering space or on the green roof, which are, there's wonderful flower gardens there.
Right.
It's sort of quite beautiful. We have an atrium, too, that people like to get married in. It's very light and bright, different types of stone enclosing it. We have proms, we have corporate events. In our auditorium, we have ballets and other kinds of productions.
I've been to the ballet there, and it was just a really neat experience. Two different combined culture.
Did not know this.
Yeah, so we're really sort of trying to expand our events. It's just an exceptional space for many, many different kinds of events, private, corporate, public events. We have lots of, as I mentioned, conferences, but also powwows, which are sort of annual dance events that are taking place. We have an educational powwow in the summertime, so definitely stay tuned for that.
Yep.
An educational powwow. Okay, there's a couple of things that we need to do, Tricia.
Well, I believe you do that every year, right? The
We do.
Yep.
We do. Yep. I think that's coming up in August, and I hope I'm not going to get in trouble for misspeaking. So you'll have to pay attention to our calendar of events.
Maybe that's part of the, and also that's great with the 15-year
right.
anniversary programming.
And we have cultural survival bazaar coming up as well in August to mark commemorate our 15 years and so on.
So the future for this museum, what would you like to see in the next 5 years with this museum? Where do you want to see it go?
Well, certainly
more exhibits or
new, fresh exhibits that focus on. We might see things like Indians in sports. We might see something to do with wampum, which was so important to the Indian nations in this region and beyond. We'll see a continuation of an updating of the permanent exhibits, including the Indian Mariners project that I've been working on. We're currently updating
That's
some
interesting, Tricia. The Mariners are tying the Indians to the sea. That is very interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. You always think of
Well, I think
land.
you think of well, and you also when you think of you're thinking of these huge ships, but I mean,
Right.
you're talking about obviously something much smaller though, but still,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
pushing
well,
their way of life.
my summer is going to be pretty busy with travels to Hawaii and Alaska and Australia and New Zealand.
That is a very difficult life,
Wow,
Jason.
you
Yeah.
are very lucky.
I know, and I've had many, many
I'm
offers.
going to consider Jason a friend.
We're going
okay?
to take Mystic Matters on the road.
On the road.
Yep.
This is
yep.
very interesting, Jason.
Well, I'm
Very
hoping
interesting.
to stream in Skype some of these travels into the museum for members and guests to sort of follow me around this summer in springtime. And again, moving forward, we're looking to expand our events. We are looking to develop institutional relationships with the local universities and colleges.
Fantastic.
So I think the future's bright. We have a lot of opportunity ahead of us.
Well, I see 27 years turning into 35 years and possibly 40
100 years.
But Jason, you're doing such great work.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
so
thank you.
important, not only to our community, but also to those who visit and the future of our children. So continue to do this great work because it's exciting. I know I could listen to you talk, so maybe we could be part of that Skype.
Yes.
But certainly come back, Jason, and tell us after the summer about your experiences.
I absolutely will.
But just for the audience to know, you have to go here.
If you haven't been, it's well worth it.
It's amazing, an amazing museum. And don't just go once, because you won't get it all at once, okay? Because I
won't.
stepped into my car and said, now, about that, and blah, 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 blah. So you have to go back again and sign up for a membership, because it's certainly worth it. So anyways, Dr. Jason Mancini, I want you to sign up and come back, Forget Kevin. We know. No, I mean, don't forget him. I mean, Uncle Kevin McBride.
Uncle
he's done a
Kevin.
great job. But
Yeah.
do come back, whether it's with you or Kevin after the summer, and we'll
Absolutely.
we'll say to be continued. So
I'd
make
like
sure
that.
you get back on the
Absolutely.
schedule. So thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
with us.
And can I just mention
Yes.
our website?
Yes, oh, absolutely.
pequotmuseum.org. Please check out all of our upcoming events and programs. We have a lot,
Great.
including, if I can just mention,
Yes,
we
absolutely.
have Wolves coming. We have Earth Week in April, doing full moon hikes in Pequot country.
Great.
Coming up, and scavenger hunts that are becoming more and more regular at the
But
museum.
check the website.
Check the website,
Okay. All right,
and
good.
a night at the museum maybe somewhere in the future for us.
Fantastic. And we'll continue to, speak out on behalf of the museum as well, because, like I said, you have to go there.
Yes, that can be also seen from the Chamber website, direct link to the museum's website as well.
Right. And Tricia Walt, again, your second show on Mystic Matters, and I look forward to many, many, many more shows. We are Mystic Matters, the Greater Mystic Chamber of Commerce. Good evening.
Good evening.
Your soul and spirit fly into mystic. Let your soul and